So I thought, I do about 4 times during the season, I do a Super Bowl bubble. And so let's just look. This is week 4, the start of week 4, and this is currently my Super Bowl bubble. For the radio audience, I have 7 teams inside the bubble, they're favorites. Kansas City, Buffalo, Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit. Yeah, I buy the Vikings, Baltimore, San Francisco. I have the Jets, the Seahawks, and the Philadelphia. I'm letting them lean on the fence at this ranch. I'm letting them lean on the fence. I may let them into the property. Dallas, I don't even have the Saints on this, and they crushed Dallas in Dallas, blew them out, right? So Dallas isn't even allowed into the county lines here. So I don't even think they're close. And I've said this before, I think it used to be in the NFL that quirky and weird, little Jerry Glanville, little over-the-top guy, Dennis Green. I think a quirky and different and unique Sam Weish, you can get to Super Bowls. You can win a division. You can win a lot of games. I think the NFL's gotten smarter, more sophisticated, more business-like, more analytics, though it's not baseball where it's made the game boring. But I think with the NFL, family-owned and operated, that used to be like prideful. Hey, we're family-owned and operated. That's for a deli. I don't think that works. I think you have to be Stan Kroenke and be the biggest residential and commercial real estate owner in America, maybe the world. That's what you need now. Family owned and operated is like the Raiders. Like, I don't know. Does that feel robust, dynamic? I've said the NFL allowed quirky, and this happens all the time in a lot of businesses. Quirky and weird is okay. In Hollywood, that used to play. And now it's like The Avengers Part 9. It's basically the independent film. Yeah, finance it yourself with your money. And I think that's why Hollywood has slowed down. It's like big streamers and big movies, and we're not making anything else. And I think quirky and weird and highly emotional, and I think that stuff, it's cute, but it just doesn't win enough. And I think that's what the Lakers have become. And I think it's what the Cowboys have become, family-owned businesses. And this is not a family-owned business league as much.
Okay. Well, so I want to talk about the bubble. Let's get to it. Okay. So here's his bubble. We got the Kansas City Chiefs, of course, Buffalo Bills, Minnesota Vikings, Detroit Lions, San Francisco 49ers, Baltimore Ravens, and Green Bay Packers in the bubble, and then the Eagles, the Seahawks, and the Jets on the outside. Listen, this isn't a terrible bubble. I'm not going to act like this is like the worst thing, because I don't. I think you can't go wrong, really, with any of these teams. I agree having the Cowboys nowhere near it. I think the Saints were on the bubble, but they obviously got off to a really hot start, winning those 2 games, and the third losing to the Eagles. I would say that you probably need to see a couple more games until they maybe get re-invited, see if they can recapture what they had. Now they're dealing with some substantial injuries, and we'll see how that kind of unfolds. But listen, I'm going to put the Houston Texans on the bubble as well. I know they got off to an interesting start where they really were good offensively, and then the last 2 games defensively, not so much. Of course, the Chiefs are going to be in the bubble for me. Same thing with the Lions as well as the Minnesota Vikings and the 49ers. You really can't go wrong there. And of course, the Bills and the Packers. The Packers, of course, need Jordan Love in order for them to be in the actual Super Bowl bubble. I'm going to have to imagine Jordan Love is going to have to be there from the long-term perspective. I'm going to put the Eagles actually inside the bubble, but remove the Baltimore Ravens and put them on the outside the bubble. Those two are technically kind of out of those teams listed right there. I would say that they are actually the them and even the Jets, between the Ravens, the Jets, and the Eagles. Technically, I believe most people believe that they can be great, outside of people who just obviously hate those teams. That they can be great, but there's just question marks around them, right? There's question marks around Nick Sirianni. What's going on with that? What's going on with the defense and the offensive injuries and whatnot. Same thing with the Jets. It's like there's belief that Aaron Rodgers is going to get this team going forward in a great way, but there's still that question mark. They didn't look good against the 49ers, but then they looked good against 2 other bad teams. So it's just like, who are really the actual New York Jets? And same thing with the Ravens. They lose 2 games. They lose a bad game to the Raiders, and then they beat the Cowboys, but they almost blow it, right? They looked amazing for the Cowboys, and it was like, oh yeah, here we come. And then they almost lose to the Cowboys, and the Cowboys, as according to Colin, are nowhere even close to the Super Bowl bubble. So like that's kind of questionable as well. So I think there's just like a lack of trust around some of these teams. Although you could argue that there's also going to be a little bit of a lack of trust with the Detroit Lions as well. Quite frankly, you're always going to have trust for the Kansas City Chiefs and the 49ers as long as they're fully healthy. And it seems like the Bills are really kind of earning that trust so far as well this season. The Seahawks, to me, I've done a couple clips now with the Seahawks being involved, and I just keep expressing that I just honestly genuinely don't know, right? I really do not have a good feeling one way or the other who the Seattle Seahawks are, and do I really believe that they have a true chance to get out there and win a Super Bowl? I'm just not so sure. I kind of bought into the Seahawks before, especially when Geno Smith turned things around, and I was really excited for him and happy for him. And I kind of like got burned. I kind of started to get buy into that whole idea, and I just feel like that's potentially kind of some of the same thing that's happening again with Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks, where it's like, yeah, they're a pretty good team, and they're no longer maybe and Geno Smith's no longer as bad as he once was as a quarterback, but not in a way where Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks are going to be able to convincingly beat the Green Bay Packers, the Minnesota Vikings, the Detroit Lions, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, right? Like, it's hard for me to see Seattle beating any of those teams, quite frankly. That's why. I just don't see it. So it is interesting that Colin, though, still does have the Philadelphia Eagles up there, because he keeps kind of going back and forth. He has them as a top 10 team, then he has them out of the top 10 team, then he has them back to being like top 5. At one point he had them top 3. Like, he's really kind of like, he doesn't know what to do with the Eagles, clearly, which I understand, because he just does not like Nick Sirianni, right? He does not like him as a coach, and I think it's all fair, and I've already talked extensively about that, so I won't rehash that, but I do think it's fair. The Eagles haven't earned that trust as a franchise right now because of the level of play that they play. When you see them almost lose to the Saints and lose to the Falcons, maybe if they really pulled off, I think there would be more trust if they win that game against the Falcons, because then it's like, you know what, they won it. It was a hard fought game. They went out there and they got the job done, right? It wasn't the most beautiful game, but they had some huge key situational stops when they needed to get the first downs, convert, score a field goal, a touchdown, whatever it may be. They did it. Beautiful game, beautiful play call to get Saquon the ball wide open. Everybody else was expecting a run, but whatever it may be, you would have more trust. But the fact that it didn't unfold that way, you're now like, I don't know. And beating the Saints went a long way, but it was also had some questionable moments. And it's not to say that that most games aren't going to have some of those questionable moments. It's just the Eagles just feel like there's just more a fragility of trust, I should say, right? I'm a firm believer in their roster and what they can do, and I'm a firm believer that when this team is fully healthy, the peaks that these players can reach, right? Like Saquon, Devontae, Jalen, like I've seen it, right? We've seen a lot of that, the bulk of that team, what they were able to do in terms of getting to the Super Bowl and how great they were able to play in the Super Bowl. So that nucleus, that foundation is there, plus adding a couple other pieces, to me, is why the Eagles will continue to be such an interesting team. You just want to see more stability, more consistency, so you can kind of rebuild that level of trust around them. So yeah, this bubble is, again, at the end of the day, this bubble is in no way bad. But like I said, I would add the Texans to the general area. Probably put the Eagles inside the bubble itself. Take the Ravens on the outside. Question mark about Seattle. Think Jets are fine where they are. And now I'm trying to think of if there's any other teams that I'm potentially missing. Not the Falcons, the Broncos, the Bears, the Chargers. Yeah, I think honestly, I think that makes sense. I think maybe if the Chargers were fully healthy and they weren't having these problems with Justin Herbert, you can put them on the outside of the bubble. And I think if the Cardinals played better game versus the Lions, I would have felt more comfortable putting them on that bubble. But I really did not think that was a good game versus the Lions. So, but yeah, no, overall, there's Colin's Super Bowl bubble. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Who do you think should be in the bubble, outside the bubble? Any teams that you see that are there that shouldn't be on there at all, or any teams that aren't there that you think should be there? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.